last year when we went to Arlington, of course, one of the Pearsons that we took was Isaiah Mays, who was in 1892 was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, was a recipient, and we carried him and 2 local Civil Star veterans to Arlington. And that whole mission was basically to raise awareness across the nation of who we were and what we were trying to do. Every state has different laws, and some no laws at all on how to handle this. In the last year, we've gotten 12 states to pass laws. We have H.R. 2642, which is into the House of Representatives, that probably, unfortunately, will die there because there's only 9 sponsors, and it's just not something that's being brought up to be passed at the national level. But that law says, Department of Veterans Affairs, acknowledge that there is an unclaimed cremains problem, take charge of it, build a database, and try to pay any ancillary costs that can be associated with this. For example, in California, for every veteran we find, there was a $31 fee just to get a permit to take them from the funeral home to the cemetery. They've since reduced that to $11, but we find veterans that are in cardboard boxes, in baggies, in spittoons. In the case of Kentucky, where we just did 34 veterans, they were vandalized and spread, and we were only able to put what we could recognize and what was together close by an urn together to be buried in a wonderful service that just happened a few weeks ago. So this is a task we're working at. One thing that they told you about all the nice black and white brochures, there is a nice brochure today on the side of the fields. And this is our brochure that tells our mission statement and says a lot more than I can explain to you. But especially read on the back, there's a most wonderful poem that was written in March of the same year that Fox News report was done. And we had, I think, 14 veterans to bury. It was a murky March day, rainy, gloomy, and the guy that wrote this poem was one of our escort riders. But it's absolutely excellent. It says more than you can ever do by looking at our website or anything else on the emotions. But that day, we buried 14 people. One of them was a 30-year highway patrol veteran that was abandoned. And we had maybe 40 riders, combination of all of us here, PGR, MIAP, OGR. And here's all these grizzly veterans standing around that committal shelter without a single family member there to honor the dead. You saw 50 guys crying. Because we realized that we have to be their family. We have to get the laws changed so that somebody has a voice to speak for these guys. Right now, nobody's going to speak for them. Luckily, in January of this year, Assemblyman Nielsen submitted AB 1644 into the California legislature. It right now has passed the Assembly with unanimous votes, and it has passed the Senate Judiciary and Veterans Affairs Committees. Is simply waiting for the senators to get back and have a consent or voice vote to pass to be to the governor to sign. But what this law does is that this law says that all 58 counties in California have to appoint a Veterans Remains officer, not a Veteran Service officer. A Veteran Service officer can be American Legion, AMVETS, anybody that's chartered and hired by the county that works on getting benefits, health benefits, compensation, and other stuff. This new officer will deal only with remains of homeless, unclaimed people, and they will be responsible to verify to the funeral homes who's authorized to come in and give the records to. and that every funeral home must give us the information that's required by the Department of Veterans Affairs. So what it means is, in California, we are going to stop anybody from ever getting placed unclaimed longer than a year. This person will be in charge to make sure that everybody that's there is recorded and out within a year. It also means that anybody that's residing on the shelves now, the information will be given to us to research, and we will then in turn have them buried honorably at a state or a VA national cemetery. And we do this for a couple of reasons instead of a private cemetery. One, burial in a state or VA cemetery is free. Two, if we bury somebody and their long-lost relative comes up and says, "Where is he?" we say, "Here's where he is," because they have an international locator system that you can go online. In fact, it's so sophisticated now, you can set on your cell phone and call in and get a location and a deal while you're standing right in the cemetery looking for somebody. The other thing is that if somebody is found and they say, "You took him and you buried him," and this has to deal in many cases with it. The next of kin on record is simply the person that signed or paid the cemetery. But for a cremated remains, somebody had to sign an order. Somebody had to be responsible, but they haven't came forward to stand up and take care of that. And so, Missing in America is going to stand in and represent the family dealing with the funeral home and the cemetery. So, California, hopefully, in another 60 days, will be the only state in the nation that will stop it and clean it out. Now, what does that mean? That means all of a sudden, in every county, we have to have 58 representatives of us, as we're the only Veterans Remain organization authorized in the country. And we have a special relationship with the Department of Veterans Affairs, that we are allowed to submit names and social security numbers and record search to the National Personnel Records Center. And nobody can go and get information because it's all Privacy Act and other responsibilities, not so much for the dead person, but for any of his family or anybody else. What that means is we are all of a sudden going to be inundated in California with tons of paperwork, tons of $11 fees, tons of we have to buy our earnings. And again, we're like you guys, our bank balance isn't much better. So we're relying on the assistance of people and private donations. We're finally getting enough recognition that we're going to be able to submit for some grants and some other stuff. But you know, this whole business, like everything, the same thing that you're doing, you have to establish a credibility. People, when you're dealing with people and families and death and relatives, you have to be credible. I carry a $2 million liability policy so that the funeral homes know that we won't sue them, know that we won't release any information that we read in there that's private. So there's a lot of considerations and legal things you have to do. And that's what we're about. If you can, read the poem. There's some other flyers made by the American Legion. But we'll be looking all throughout California for tons of people like you to help us. So our biggest thing is spread the word to who we are and what we're doing. And we need your help. Thank you.